Hey guys, good morning. It is actually the morning still, technically. It's like almost 11. I'm a little late in here. That's what happens. Anyways, okay, so hi. For those of you who are new, I'm Shayna Kamen. I'm the nutritionist behind Super Simple Nutrition, and we're in the group now of Super Simple Nutrition Hacks, because that's what I'm trying to do, is teach you all these cool, awesome, really helpful hacks to make eating nutritionally, healthfully, I don't even know how to say that, easier, because it can be done really easily. Hey Lala, I'm going to answer your other question you had in the other group. So I want to just like give you a little background. I'm a strategic nutritionist, and what that means is that, hey Javi, is that I teach my clients and my peeps, I'm going to call you guys my peeps, how to use real simple and delicious foods, normal food, to heal different kinds of health struggles that people have. So lots of instances where people might have conventionally turned to over-the-counter or prescription drugs. A lot of people, pretty much all my clients, are able to address the overwhelming majority of their issues just by changing their food alone. So whether that's really crazy PMS symptoms and they don't want to use birth control to control that anymore, we're able to deal with that. We're able to boost fertility dramatically. We're able to heal all kinds of indigestion, whether that's IBS or Crohn's or take your pick. There's a lot of things in there, but from a nutrition perspective, they're all very similar of how to handle those things. Hey! What else? Obviously weight loss, people always want to talk about weight loss. But anyway, so those are all the kinds of things I could do basically to help you learn how to heal what you're dealing with from using food as medicine. And today I want to talk about, because I've been getting a lot of questions of people asking like, Shayna, like, what do you feel about intuitive eating? And so I want to put a disclaimer on this. I am not an expert on intuitive eating. I'm familiar with it. I really appreciate a lot of the principles. Who's out here? My son's home from school today, and I told him to give me space right now, but he's not. Anyways, so I'm not but I am an expert on using food to heal all kinds of health maladies and struggles that people have. And a big component of that is learning how to have a positive relationship with food. And on top of that, I always say that, like, thank God my clients are all extremely successful. and I break that into two parts. Number one is that thankfully I'm very good at what I do of identifying what are your nutritional needs and coming up with a plan that will work for you. But the other half of it is that I make sure that it's very practical and very realistic, because even if I came up, I'm getting emails, even if I came up with like the most amazing nutrition plan in the world, if it was not practical for you, or you did not like those foods, or you did not have access to them, or it took too long to make them, you wouldn't do it, right? Like, let's just be real and honest with each other. And so the concept of addressing the relationship that you have with the food on your plate or not on your plate is something that I'm dealing with every single day with every single client. And so a lot of the principles, hey Brittany, hey Erica, a lot of the principles of intuitive eating I really appreciate. I wrote notes, so I'm sure I'll forget some things, but I wrote notes. Hey Mashi. Okay. So the first thing that I want to say is, actually, I'm going to quote my husband on this. I don't think it was our first date. On our second date, he said two things to me that really stuck with me, and that I'm going to share with you. The first one that he said that really stuck with me, really stroked the feminist side of me, is I forgot what we were talking about, but I think I was like, hey, like, you want to go over here? You want to go do something? And he's like, you're the boss, applesauce. And so the feminist in me was like, yes, I am. I am the boss. Thank you for acknowledging that. So that's not so relevant to us right now, but I just thought it was cute and wanted to tell you. But the second thing that he said to me that also really, really sat well with me is, again, I don't remember what we were talking about, but he said, different strokes for different folks. And also like a cute, sorry, the lighting is weird. I'm trying to fix it. But I really believe in that. And so, I would first like to say, if you have struggled with, any kind of emotional eating, and you have found that intuitive eating has been helpful for you, well, then that's awesome. And stick with it. And the last thing I ever want to do is bash on something or discourage anyone from doing something that has been working for them. Like, a big thing that I really, really believe in is that the proof is in the pudding. And so meaning that if something is helping you and something is working for you, that's awesome. And whatever else you learn, I think it's really important to continue learning things from varying perspectives, because I think that just as a critical thinker and as intelligent people, it's very valuable to learn things from varying perspectives. But I also think it's very, very valuable to balance that with your personal experience. And so if you read an article that says dairy is the best thing in the world and it's going to save you from osteoporosis, but for you, every time you have dairy, you get congested and constipated, like, I kind of don't care what the article says. And I kind of think that you shouldn't either, right? Not I don't care. Obviously, as a nutritionist, I care. And I could explain to you why that's happening to you, but not other people. But that's not our topic right now. But I just think it's really valuable not to throw out your personal experience, and hafuch, the opposite, upside down from that, that your personal experience is extraordinarily valuable. Hey, Sheila! I don't know if I've met you before. Say hi. Tell me where you're from. And so that is the number one thing I want to say. Different strokes for different folks. If you're having success with something and it feels good to you, stick with it and continue, or stick with it if that feels good. And of course I think it's valuable to continue learning and continue of trying other things and being open-minded. But first and foremost, I want to say that if something is doing well for you, that is wonderful. So that's my first thing that I want to put out there. As far as some of the, I don't want to say concerns, but I guess, I'll say it like this. There are many wonderful aspects of intuitive eating that really align with my approach that I use with myself and my clients and my family. And there are certain elements of it that do not align. So again, I'm not passing judgment. I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't agree with me. But if people are asking, and this is why I'm doing this, people are asking what is my take on it, I'm telling you the things that align with my approach and the things that don't align with my approach. So again, I'll start. The first thing that really does align with my approach is one of the big goals that I have with every single client I have is learning to understand your cravings and what they mean and what they're asking for, so that by the end of our working together, you are no longer predominantly making food choices from like your cerebral cortex over here, from I read this is good and Shayna told me this is good, and you're much more making choices from I don't know if I would say intuitive, honestly, but from the animal in you, right? Just from like, what do I want? And for you to be able to discern the difference between a good craving, a real craving, I would say, and an unhealthy, unreal craving. And that's, I think, somewhere that I definitely don't align with intuitive eating, and I'll explain what I mean for those things. But the fundamental belief that your body has a very powerful mechanism that can be trusted to, but not always, right? So I'll get into that. I kind of want to see if I can sit, if that's going to mess up our lighting terribly. That's okay, right? Sit on by my messy counter. But no, the lighting is still really weird. Maybe you guys don't care, but I feel like whenever I watch videos and the lighting is really weird, it's really hard for me to continue watching. I get frustrated. Okay, that's not so bad. So that's the first part, is that I do believe with the concept of that you have cravings that you can honor. The part that I don't necessarily agree with, oh man, okay, I'm so fidgety, sorry guys. Okay, I'm gonna sit up here, that's gonna work. Okay, so one of the things that that I'll say does not align with my approach is I definitely don't advise my clients to listen to every single craving they have, because to me, just practically, just as an approach to life, that's too extreme. I am naturally a very extreme person, and so almost all of Sorry, I forgot to put my phone on Don't Disturb and I'm getting texts and emails. Hey, Donna. So I'm naturally a very extreme person. And so for me to have, to be in a program or to ascribe to something or just believe in something that has very extreme beliefs does not work well with who I am. And so I don't like the concept, like there's a hard line. Like my understanding of intuitive eating, and again, I'm not an expert in it, but I am very familiar with it, is that really you're supposed to like honor and that every single craving and desire that you have, whether that's for Gushers or chocolate cake or avocado. And that is not something that I can get behind from my perspective, right? That's not something that that's not true. That's not something that I would do in my practice. That's not something that's aligned with the way that I do things. However, I want to continue saying different strokes for different folks. And I can certainly see that perhaps there's a time and place for that kind of thing. Hey, Dahlia. And that there's a time and place. I just don't like to throw anything out. You know, I'm not God and I'm not a guru. It's not how I do things, but I really don't like to put the stamp one way or the other. I really think that there's different times, different places, different people, different situations. And in my practice, like you see, like I post pictures of you, like with my, I'm stuttering, but like, you know, I'll post a picture of like me with my kids at the regular ice cream store. It's not that they only get the ice cream that I make at home and that I had some donut with my son at his like Hanukkah party. Like for me, I don't ascribe to the extremes one way or the other. So while I will have those things, and someone asked, I guess I'll answer this right now. Someone asked also about, what are my thoughts about like, you know, how can you be on a diet? Is that possible and still have a body positive or body healthy, whatever, a healthy approach that's not shame-based, I think is a real question. And so I'm going to change the language there and say, I don't really believe in diets because I feel that diets really are, if you look at the definition, I don't know what Webster would say, but I think in our heads, we all view diets as something that's restrictive, and somewhat painful for an end goal, right? And that is definitely not how I live my life, not how I educate my children, not how I educate my clients, and not how I educate myself. All of the food choices that we make in my home and with my clients is about being kind and loving to yourself and giving yourself what you need. So this really actually will come full circle to the concept of listening and trusting your cravings, right? So, you know, first of all, I'll say for a lot of my clients, I'd say maybe 60% of them, maybe 65, one of their goals is weight loss. But the other 40%, 35, 40, 45, again, I'm not sure exactly the numbers on here, I'm guesstimating, they just have other health concerns. And so, meaning they have PMS, they are struggling to get pregnant, they're struggling to stay pregnant, they have terrific digestive issues where there's like blood when they go to the bathroom or mucus or they're constipated, they only go once a week, like, right? So those are things, and the reason why I'm sharing that, I'm sorry if that's gross, like for me, I talk about it all the time, it's not gross to me, that I think you probably can all kind of get behind the concept of like, if you're going to change your eating so that you're not constipated anymore, or you're going to start eating differently so that you don't get horrible cramps, or so that you are in a good mood instead of like feeling like a raging biznatch, we'll keep it clean, all like a couple weeks of the month, right, depending on how bad it is for you. I think it's pretty safe to say that you'd be able to make those changes without a lot of shame involved, right? You wouldn't be doing it from the perspective of like, oh, I'm a bad person and I'm not enough and I'm not good enough and that's why I get constipated. We don't really have that narrative, that like crazy narrative about other health issues. We only, as a culture, I'd say probably have that narrative about weight. So I'm sharing with you the same approach that I take with my clients, whether they want to heal their digestion so they can have smooth, easy bowel movements, or they want to get rid of their PMS, or they're trying to have a baby and they've been trying for 2 years and it's not working, right? That same attitude is what I take with my clients who are trying to lose weight also. That there's no judgment on their character or their value because they have this struggle, right? Or because they have this thing they haven't figured out. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I also encourage, one of the things I also do like about intuitive eating is they're very anti-shame and anti-judgment and anti-prescribing like a character judgment based off of food choices. And that is something that I align with 1,000%. And, you know, but I have no problem saying, like, this is a crappy cookie and I'm enjoying it. And I feel so, and if I decide, you know, if my husband and I go out somewhere, if we go to Got Kosher and I want to get one of those like enormous chocolate chip cookies, like I have no questions in my mind, like this cookie is crap and I'm going to enjoy it and that's okay with me. And I'm not judging myself or my character. I don't think it's a reflection of my value or worthiness by the fact that I'm choosing to eat like a cookie that's essentially, I don't want to say if that cookie is necessarily toxic. Other ones might be. I'd say Gushers are more toxic than those cookies. But that conceptually, it's a conscious choice that I'm making. I know my body. I know where my health is. I know where my parameters are. I know how much crap I can eat and still be in relatively thriving health, right? If I, for example, if I have a healthy meal and then I have like half one of those cookies, I'll be fine. My body is strong enough. Hey, Kayla, my body is strong enough that I can handle it. I'm not going to get sick from it. I'm not going to have a blood sugar crash. I'm going to go through my day and feel good and enjoy my cookie and like Zehu. Like that's it, right? If I would have 3 of those cookies, I would feel sick. I'd feel nauseous. I'd get a headache. I would probably get constipated from it. Like I would have a host of responses. I know my body really well and I make my choice from a loving perspective of I don't think that life is about food. I think food is about life. And I can have half of that cookie without judging myself, without feeling shame, and enjoy it and know it's crap, right? And so for me, that I think is a difference by the way the beliefs and the core approach I have in my practice versus intuitive eating. That, you know, in intuitive eating, a cookie is a pretzel, is an avocado, is organic raw milk, like is broccoli. They're all the same. And I fundamentally disagree with that because I'm using food as medicine. And so if you want to say they're the same in the sense that it does not affect your character, I agree 1,000%. It does not affect your character. It is not a reflection of who you are. I don't think any health struggles are a reflection of who you are, but I think a lot of times people will ascribe judgment to themselves around their weight. You know, if a person is, again, like I've mentioned before, you know, if they're struggling with their fertility or they're chronically constipated or they have these really weird cravings for salt all the time, they don't generally start judging themselves about that and being like, man, like I just am not good enough as a person. But for some reason in our culture, when the struggle or the issue or the confusion is about weight, we do, right? So, but that's one of the first things that I try and shift with my clients is understanding this is just another way that we are learning to listen to what your body's needs are. Because the way that I view all the symptoms that my clients have is under the lens of your body has needs and it's expressing those needs, right? So the same way if your kid comes home from school and they need attention right away, right? If you give them attention right away and you're like, hey, how was your day? And then you play with them, whatever, then you maybe need to go and like work for 20 minutes. They probably can handle that. But if you ignore them for 20 minutes when they walk in, they're going to start throwing tantrums, right? Because they like need your attention. And I would say that's not a malfunction on their part of the system. That is them expressing their needs that are not getting met. And so the answer is not to like throw them in timeout and tell them to shut up and shame them and judge them and like, what the hell is wrong with you, right? Like, that's definitely not an approach that I would encourage. But rather try and get to the source of like, what's going on? Why is this child throwing a tantrum? And if you notice it, gosh, it's only on the days when I ignore them for 20 minutes when they walk in the door, the solution is probably not to do that, right? And so the same thing with our body, with all these symptoms, whether it is that your body's holding on to an extra 20 pounds or 5 pounds, or you're chronically congested, or you get ear infections or UTIs or yeast infections, or you can't sleep, you have insomnia, that it's all just your body's way of expressing, I'm not getting my needs met. Hey, Rachel. And so that is the lens that I see everything through as a practitioner. And I do not believe in ascribing judgment to whatever the person is dealing with, whether it's me or my children or my family or my clients. And so I love that aspect of intuitive eating, of not ascribing judgment. I don't think anyone has any health struggles because they're not trying. I think like that whole, it's very common like narrative in the media of like, you know, hustle harder, try harder. I don't believe in that at all. I think the vast majority of people are trying really, really, really hard. I think honestly, I feel like everyone's doing their best. I feel in general, everyone is doing the best they can in every area of their life. And it is absolutely not about pushing yourselves harder. It's about having a more holistic and effective understanding of what's going on for you. So I have a couple more notes. I feel like I think I'm talking things that are interesting, but I also want to explain a couple things. Okay, yeah, so I'm kind of checking my notes. So number one of the things that I appreciate and align with intuitive eating, the concept of listening to your body is a huge one for me. Anyone who's familiar, any of you have been my clients or taking out some of my classes, maybe you know, a huge part of the way that I practice, the pillar of what I do things is the belief and the concept of what's called bio-individuality. And what that means is like what works for one person doesn't work for another. And it doesn't mean that one of them is wrong. It means we're different, right? And so, you know, people ask like, oh, what do I think about paleo? What do I think about veganism? What do I think about grains? What do I think? I'm like, well, it like on paper, I think these things, but it also really matters for who, right? So like, you know, some people get, like, in my house, we don't have really brown rice kind of ever because it constipates all of us. None of us feel good on it. However, we all feel really good on quinoa, so we have a lot of that. However, I have several clients who it's opposite. And so it's not nearly, so the concept of bio-individuality and listening to your body, that's what I love about intuitive eating. The concept of listening to your body, I am super duper aligned with. The concept of obeying everything that your body asks, I'm not in alignment with, and I'll tell you why. So I want to make that distinction, right? So here's the things I am super aligned with. Super aligned with the concept of listening to your body, paying attention. Gosh, I really want broccoli. I also really want ice cream. I want sour sticks. I want Gatorade. I want coconut water. I want to know that. And those are things that I will ask you if you're a private client. I will ask you all those things. What do you want? What is your body telling you? Right? Super supportive of that. I'm not aligned with the concept of just because your body's asking to say yes. However, if we're not saying yes, or we are saying yes, we're not ascribing judgment to it. It just is. It's like, what color is this wall? Well, it's kind of off-white and a little dirty. Like, maybe you're judging me, but I'm not. I try not to. Try not to judge myself about the state of my home. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, that's just where we are, right? And okay, so right, it's listening, but not necessarily agreeing with, not necessarily obeying. And now I want to explain the way that I kind of view cravings and break it down of, how I view cravings and break them down. So there's different I'm going to say there's like 3, but we're going to start with the first 2. There's 3 really major craving types, but I'm going to first just start with the 2. That we sometimes crave healthy things and we sometimes crave unhealthy things, right? Like, I think we can all get behind that, most of us. Sometimes you walk into someone's house and they have an awesome salad on the table and you're like, that looks good. And sometimes they bring out dessert and you're like, that looks really good. Right? So I also want to say there's a difference between saying like, oh, that looks good or that smells good, and a craving of like, oh my God, I have to have that. I want that so bad, right? So the craving, I'm going to say, is like when you want it so bad. Listen, a donut always smells good to me, but I don't always crave them, right? So deciphering cravings, I break into two parts. And this is really cool, I think. And whenever I explain this to clients, we're like, wow, that's so helpful. So from a nutrition perspective and a health perspective, our body will only ask for unhealthy things when the healthy needs are not being met. Our body is very, very smart and is first going to always want the healthy choice. If the healthy choice is not available for whatever reason, that's when we start craving the unhealthy things. Okay, so the example that I always give for this is that if you can, imagine back to high school or junior high or whatever it is, a child that comes from a home that has two loving, or whatever, it doesn't have to be two, the parents can be divorced, but has a loving, supportive home where the child feels safe and the child feels valued and the child feels loved. And if that child also has a strong group of friends where the child feels accepted and can have fun and feels a sense of belonging, that child, hey Nechama, that child does not just magically saunter over to the druggies, smoking pot on like across the street from the school. Like, that kid is just not interested. Hey Leia, right? Because they've got all their needs met. They're not poking around looking for that. They feel satisfied. They feel settled. And I'm not saying they're impervious to temptation, but I haven't looked into the research on this, but I can confidently say, just as a human, I'm really confident that 99.99% of the kids that get into that, why are they getting there? It's if they don't have friends. If they don't have a support system. They might have people they sit with. Maybe the people they sit with are jerks to them, right? Like, people, like kids that come from a warm, loving, safe home, that have warm, loving, encouraging, supportive friends, and they have a sense of belonging, those kids do not just saunter over to the kids smoking pot or cigarettes or whatever on across the field. They just don't. Who are the kids that go? The kids that don't have friends. The kids that don't have a support system. The kids whose parents are not really warm and loving, and they don't, and again, I'm not even judging those parents. It's hard to be a parent. Right? Like, some kids are harder to parent than others. But what I'm articulating is that the child is having needs that are not being met. Without judgment, it's hard to meet everyone's needs. But I think that we can all probably pretty easily agree that the reason that kid is walking over to that like sketchy group of people or whatever is because they have needs that are not met. If they had a group of friends that accepted them and invited them over and had a open relationship where they could talk openly with their parents, they would not go looking for other places to be friends. And probably the kids, like, whatever, they're going to use him to, like, they're going to use that kid to be like, oh, hey, can you, like, go, get a fake ID, buy cigarettes for us. Kids don't just, like, go magically wind up there. It's they don't have what they're really after, right? No one aspires to be like, you know what, I really want to be the bully's little bitch. Right? Sorry for cursing, but you understand what I'm saying? No one wakes up feeling that way. Kids will accept that role. We all accept that role when we don't have real friends and we don't have a support system. Everyone agree with me on this? Can you give me like a like or a heart or a comment or something? Is it making sense? The same thing happens with our body. No one's body wakes up in the morning, and if that body is well fed and well nourished, no one's body's like, I want me a bear claw with tons of sugar and tons of hydrogenated oils and tons of white flour. Bodies do not crave that when they have their needs met. Bodies crave that when their needs are not met. Because, now, I'm not saying those things don't look appealing, right? Like, every time I walk past the bakery, oh no, what did I do? I flipped the camera around. Now you can see my camera. Okay. Every time I walk past the bakery, like, I'm not an idiot. That stuff smells good. But it does not have the same pull on me. I'm like, oh, that smells good. Right? I don't have, like, an urge to, like, I'm not like, oh, I gotta have one. You know, I'm just like, oh, it smells really good. Right? And that's different. But we only crave those things, right? Because what happens is if our needs, our nutritional needs are not being met, our body is brilliant and is trying to take care of us. And so sugar and white carbs give us immediate energy. It's very easy to get energy from it. And so our body goes into sort of panic mode when our needs are not being met. And it's like, oh my gosh, if I'm not getting my needs met, I need something right now, right? And I think we can all relate to that feeling, right? Like when we're overwhelmed, we need something right now. We're not like, oh, I'll get it eventually. When you're overwhelmed, you need something right now. And so our body gets like that and starts, sorry, now my back is hurting from leaning back on my counter. And so, got my hair sticking up. And so that's when it starts to crave those things. And so for me, and on top of that, a lot of the unhealthy things that we crave are chemically designed to be addictive, right? Diet Coke is not just like so delicious. Most people, the first time they have Diet Coke, they think it's gross because it kind of is. However, they put a lot of special chemicals in there to make it addictive so that you come back, right? And that's the design. And so the same way I would never be like, oh, you know, honor your cravings, keep smoking cigarettes, keep going back to pot. I would not say that to someone. I would be like, that's interesting you're having those cravings. Let's unpack that. Let's see what that's really about. Let's see how we can get to the root of that so that we can find what you really need and give you that. Right? So we're listening to what your body's asking, but then we're going to figure out what is the real need underneath, right? I have more than a couple of friends who smoke, and they all told me, you know, various stories of, I didn't really have a lot of friends. I didn't know who to hang out with. There was a bunch of people smoking across the street, and I went there and I smoked with them and I had someone to stand with. Right? Like, that's the story. Hey, Maka. And so I would say that that is really what's happening for people also when they are craving unhealthy things. It's not about, and so the same way, again, if you had a child like that, I don't think the solution is telling them you cannot hang out with those people. You're not addressing the real issue. The real issue is they don't have friends, or they don't feel they have friends. They don't feel that they have a sense of belonging. They don't feel loved and supported and safe, or whatever it is for that child. So the solution is not taking away the one thing that they have, right? I don't even really talk, like, I will talk with my clients of like, okay, better to stay away from this, but that's like an afterthought. We focus all on giving you what you actually need. So, you know, I would say probably for a kid like that, it's okay, we got to figure out like, why doesn't this kid have friends? What are their interests? Maybe we can put them in a different school. Maybe they need extracurricular activities. Maybe they need social skills lessons. Maybe, like, who knows what it is? Like, I'm not a parenting expert. But the concept of addressing the issue at the source is what I'm getting at. And the same way, my husband's leaving. Bye! And that is the way that I address the thing. So in that way, I don't align with intuitive eating, because intuitive eating would say, if you want it, you listen to it. And I don't agree with that, because I think that if you want it and you listen automatically, very often you're missing the true message underneath. Sorry, I'm pointing. It looks so tacky. That, right? Again, parenting example. Sorry if you're not into parenting, but that's just the way I'm thinking right now. I feel like I have a bunch of moms watching. That sometimes I definitely do this, and my kids do it too, right? So I have one of my kids, when they get mad, they'll run to their room and say, leave me alone. Now you tell me, does that kid want me to leave him alone? Is that really what he wants? He wants me to let him in there by himself screaming into his pillow alone? I don't think so. Because if I do that, he just screams more. He'll slam the door more. Leave me alone, I'm so mad, right? So I respect what he's saying. I knock on the door and I say, can I come in? And he usually doesn't answer. And I say, sounds like you're really mad, you're really upset, you want to talk about it. If I did something, I'm really sorry to hurt your feelings, whatever. I try and broach the topic. And the point of that is that what he's saying is not really what's going on underneath. And that is the same issue when we are craving Duncan Hines donuts every day and Diet Coke constantly. Thinking that you're honoring your body by saying yes to that all the time, to me, is you're missing it. Because no one's body needs Diet Coke and Duncan Hines all the time. Right? Like, that's not a physical need that we have. So I'm definitely not into ignoring it. I'm into listening to it, and then figuring out what's going on underneath. Right? Is the person exhausted and they are craving the Diet Coke because it gives them a lift? Is the person having blood sugar issues and that's why the cookies? But there's 1,000 things that it could be, and that's what I figure out with my clients. But I always want to figure out what's going really on underneath. It's not so simple. When it's you can always know it's not simple when it's not healthy, because our bodies are brilliant and they're always asking. Our body does not make mistakes. If it's asking for something, there's a reason. And if it doesn't look like it's making sense on the outside, it means we just have to dig deeper. Right? I wanted to say one more thing. Oh, and the third piece, right, of breaking down cravings is there's also a huge emotional component, right? First of all, also, I don't think there's anything wrong with anyone, like, wanting treats. That's not an illness. That's different from a craving. That's not like I said, like, I'll go out, have a cookie, I'll have ice cream with my kids. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Unless you're, like, anaphylactic allergic to something, then, like, okay, then stay away. But in general, like, if you're healthy and you're well, your body can handle you not being perfect all the time. It's fine. And so we don't need to ascribe to being perfect. That's not a value or a goal for me or my clients. But the third element of deconstructing cravings is the emotional component, right? Sometimes we can understand the chemical aspect of it. And I can tell you, even for me, like, this is the reality. This is not a malfunction of the system. If I get in a fight with someone that I love, or I'm feeling down, right? One of the easiest things to do to feel better is to open a tub of ice cream, right? And that also is not a character flaw. That is just your body's really brilliant, and when you eat really sweet things combined with really fat things, it releases a lot of dopamine and serotonin, and you feel really good first, and then you feel really bad after, right? And so a lot of times, though, you know, I would use that as the opportunity. If you're like, gosh, what is wrong with me? I could eat 5 boxes of cookies. So we could definitely unpack the physical element of that, like I was talking about before. But the emotional element of that is, like, we all need to have sweet lives. We crave sweetness in our life, not from a nutritional perspective only. We want to have a good life. We want to enjoy it. It's fun. We want sweet. Sweet is like a need. It's not just a taste. And very often when we're busy and we have a lot going on, and I would also culturally say that women are not really taught to be in touch with, like, what makes you happy? What turns you on? What makes you feel alive? What gives you that sweetness in your life aside from chocolate and, like, an orange mocha frappuccino, right? A lot of times I will ask my clients, like, what gives you pleasure in your life? And it's very common, especially for my female clients, to kind of be met with, like, a deer in the headlights, like, what? You mean, like, besides chocolate? Right? And so, but we don't only crave chocolate. Like, then it gets into a much deeper thing of, like, what do you want from your life? Who are you? Like, you know, are you a ballet dancer that hasn't danced ballet in 5 years or hasn't gone to a ballet in 5 years? Are you a musician that never plays? Do you love the outdoors but you never go hiking? Like, because then, yeah, you're going to wind up eating a ton more chocolate because of the sweetness that you're craving, but it will never give you the sweetness that you're craving. But if you're like, you know what? Drop the chocolate bar, taking the half a day off, I'm going hiking, you'll be like, that's what I really wanted. And so that is kind of the comprehensive approach where I stand and align and don't align with the concepts of intuitive eating. So I'll kind of recap really fast. Of number one, I love the concept of trusting your body and listening to what your body has to say. I don't align with the belief that you should always immediately obey those cravings, because I believe a lot of those cravings are not honestly what your body's asking for. And you're not doing your child, meaning like your body's basically your child, a service by saying yes constantly. And that oftentimes it is very chemical. Obviously, like, I'm not a life coach, I'm a nutritionist. And so 95% of what I do is the chemical aspect of it, but I definitely open up those conversations with my clients of like, maybe something to think about, right? Is what you actually want. Because no amount of broccoli or green beans or spinach or chocolate or cookies will give you that feeling of satisfaction of doing whatever it is that you just love to do. And that is a huge part of being well also. And let's check my notes one more time. And again, I also want to say the concept that I started with of different strokes for different folks. If you're, for whatever reason, finding success, and I can understand that because we all grew up with different kinds of crazy. I didn't really grow up with the crazy of I can't have. Like, there wasn't really stuff, like, my parents, I would, like, argue with my mom, like, oh, why would you buy me Gushers, whatever. But, like, it wasn't, like, told to me, like, I can't. So I don't really have that personal type of crazy. I have my own type of crazy. But I can understand that especially if a person grew up with, like, you're not allowed, that it could be healing for them to say yes for a while. And, even to the things that are not really good. Because I think that there's an element of taking back your power and disassociating the shame that was probably connected with that. So I can appreciate that. Again, it's not the way that I do things. I feel that, again, I don't specialize in eating disorders. I have had several clients that do struggle with disordered eating. But that's not my specialty. And, but I feel but I also say, I think we all are emotional eaters to an extent. And so I think it's more helpful and more valuable to just know these are my goals. I want to feel X, Y, and Z. I want to have more energy. I want to be in a good mood when my kids walk in the door instead of feeling like a raging lunatic half the time. I want to just have energy so that, like, once my kids are in bed, I can, like, go out and do something for myself, right? Or I want to lose 5 pounds or 10 pounds or 20 pounds, whatever it is, but that we're coming at it from a place of love and self-care. And I think it's more valuable, in my experience and in my practice, to just know these are the foods that are going to help me do that, and these are the foods that are not. And nothing's trafe, nothing like you can't. I just explain the chemical relationship of these things. If you eat these foods, it's going to help you. You're going to feel easier. You'll feel a difference within one meal, right? I had a new client last week she was on the East Coast, so we spoke like in the evening because I was like whatever. I don't normally do evening clients, but sometimes I do if it's the only time that works for people. And she texted me in the morning. She's like, oh my gosh, I felt amazing and full for like 5 hours. And one of her issues that she was struggling with is like she felt like she was eating all the time and never felt full, right? So that's not a matter of like telling her you can't have this and that. It's a matter of understanding, like, look, you had this goal and you reached it. If you would have had 3 cookies with breakfast, it wouldn't have happened. You would have felt hungry again within 10 minutes because that's what sugar does. It makes you feel hungrier. It creates the hormone called ghrelin, which makes you feel hungry, right? So it's not that sugar's evil. It's like, I just like to lay out the facts so we understand what's going on and make educated choices that are not full of judgment. So there you go. I think that I answered this. I'm going to try and do like a little outline because I feel like I talked for a long time. But if you guys have any more questions, please pipe them in below. If you want to learn more about intuitive eating, I know there is an intuitive eating Facebook group you can probably find. I mean, I know there is one. I don't know exactly what it's called. I'm sure there's several actually. I know they have a book about it. But again, that's not my expertise. My expertise is figuring out how to help people heal their health struggles using food as the modality, right? Sometimes people want to take antibiotics as their modality. Sometimes people want to go to acupuncture as a modality. My modality as a healer is using food. And for me, of course, I'm biased, but bias aside, I'd like to say, if that's possible, to me, it just makes the most sense. Because, like, we're eating every day anyways. So, like, you're just, like, you know, harnessing what you're doing already. Like, I love acupuncture, but I don't go every week anyways. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I go, I gotta, like, get there. I gotta, like, make a separate budget for it. Whereas, like, for food, like, I already have a budget for food. I'm already eating anyways. I may as well make it work for me and, like, deal with 98% of all of my health struggles, you know? So that's that. And I think, I mean, I feel like I totally addressed it. But so in the last question of, can you have a body positive image and diet, I would say no, you can't diet and have a body positive image, because I feel like the whole belief system around diets is about restriction and shame. However, you can absolutely have a health strategy. Hey, Rachel! You can absolutely have a health strategy that is born from love and self-care and is executed through love and self-care, which is the only way that I do anything with my clients. I will never, ever, ever, never say never. I always try to never use fear or judgment or anything as a tactic, because I feel those things themselves are toxic in their own right. You know, if people don't make choices people don't change their behavior out of shame. I think that we probably all know that intuitively, but like the research says that also. And Tony Robbins, who I like a lot of what he has to say, he says, like, we have to build on our successes. We can't beat ourselves up into compliance. That doesn't work. We have to build on our successes. We have to feel successful and build on them. And so, yes, you can absolutely be intentional and have a health strategy using food to, I don't say manipulate your health, but to a degree, yeah, to create the desired effects, and have that absolutely be coming from a very body positive, like, for me, that's the only approach. Like, what else is there? What else is there other than you're caring about yourself? Like, often I'll have my clients write down, like, if I was the client, "Dear Shayna, I love you and you're worth taking care of. Love, Shayna." And everyone always, like, laughs, giggles, some people cry, people are like, "This is so dumb," right? And I'm like, okay, let it be dumb. But it's important that you know that's where we're coming from, right? I mean, so that's, you know, a lot of my, again, I think it's easier for me to get behind because I'm not like a weight loss brand. Like, yes, a lot of my clients do want to lose weight. For most people, again, maybe 60%, it's one of their goals. But people are coming to heal health issues. And if part of that is weight loss, great. But we're coming at it to be caring and loving and take better care of ourselves. And I'd say, you know, the overwhelming majority of all health struggles that people come with is a result of negligence to ourselves. And again, I say that without judgment. Like, when do we learn this stuff? You know, we can all do long division, but none of us know what a craving means. Right? So, and again, like, that's, like, we are where we are. We make better choices as we learn. But yes, the only approach that I believe in is coming from a place of love and compassion and healing, and never shame, and never just a negativity. You can't build on that. That's not sustainable, you know, and it's not, what do you want that for? Like, ew, who wants to, like, have that in your life, you know? Especially because as you heal as a person, once you feel better, are you gonna, like, once you feel good, are you gonna not do what you're doing? You have to, like, drudge up, like, beating yourself up, "Oh, I used to be X, Y, and Z." Like, no, you want to do this because you're valuable and you deserve to have your needs met, and you are inherently valuable, and by doing this, you are honoring your value and helping yourself reach your goals in your life of, like, feeling awesome, which enables you to, like, do everything else that's important to you. So there you go. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out. You can comment here, you can private message me, you can email me, Shayna@supersimplenutrition.com. And this was really fun. If you have any more questions, let me know. Mwah, love you. Bye-bye. Oh, I tried to press finish, but it didn't work.